their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
I think it's just good defense and good scheme. The coordinator has changed through the years, but the scheme stayed fairly consistent. And the players, some of the names have stayed fairly consistent. So I think they just present a good challenge. And then when you go on the road, all the more so, because you don't have quite as much control over your cadence and quite as much, to communicate as easily. So, they're a good defense that is challenging whether you're on the road or at home, but certainly when you go there.
There he is. That is Kirky McClutcherton talking about his struggles in Chicago, but it's not just a Kirk thing. The Vikings are, in their last 20 games at Soldier Field, 4-16. Good. So it goes back to Dante.
They won last year, okay? They won last year.
And they should win.
The tide is turning.
They should win this year, and we'll do the full preview on the second half of the show with Judd's keys coming to the table with keys to beat the Bears. But this is a Feedback Friday on Mackey and Judd, daily Minnesota sports entertainment and therapy. And we take all of your comments, questions, concerns, anything you want to throw at us via the Score North app. There's a feedback tab, or you can hit us up on the YouTube comment section, Score North or Purple Daily channels. Or we're always on Twitter, tweeting up a storm every day. Mm-hmm. So very Vikings heavy today, boys. Let's start with C. Ruff on YouTube. He comments, since the mission statement on Purple Daily is we all want a Super Bowl win before we die, and this year it's plausible that a team with a losing record can make the playoffs in the NFC. What would be your take if the Vikings got hot and actually won the Super Bowl with a losing regular season record? Does that invite an asterisk or diminish what the team accomplished?
Boy, that's okay.
Not at all.
I don't think it diminishes what they failed to accomplish during the season. But yeah, I mean, if you make a run as far-fetched as that is, it potentially, especially with 7 seeds in each conference now, could happen. You still want it. It would be very odd, out of character, I think, of how the league ordinarily works. An outlier, if you will. But, I mean, if you go through the playoffs and you get hot and you go on a run, now, do I think that this team is positioned to, even if they play up to their best right now? No, I don't. But I wouldn't crap on that. No, it's a Super Bowl title. So
I love how Judd, you're kind of wrestling with it though.
Would I be? I think
just to be clear, no, it would not be an asterisk. Yeah. They would be celebrated more than any Vikings team in the history of Vikings football. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I think people
you're kind of wrestling with it.
I think people think that I would be torn about. Well, they didn't do this and didn't do that. No, if I thought that there was a chance, and there was more time probably in hockey where this was a definite possibility. No, it's not going to diminish. If you have a Lombardi trophy, I don't think you're going to sit there and say, well, but how did we get it exactly? So my answer is no. I do not think it would diminish the significance of the first Super Bowl title in the history of the Minnesota Vikings.
I mean, if there is somebody on this show who would put the aesthetic of the way in which a Super Bowl was won above, it would be Judd. I remember Judd doing that with Peyton Manning. Yeah, but look at the ball fluttering out of his hand. No one needed to see that. Dude, they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I know, but he was held to such a standard, and it was so sadly and pathetically gone. But no, I'd take it.
I think, first of all, I don't care. However it gets done, it's been 60 plus years. It's time to win a championship. Whether it's, I don't care if you finish 8-9 or you finish 16-1. I think the flaw in this logic is that a team that finishes below 500 could make that run. I mean, you'd have to just think about the path. I mean, you'd have to win 3 road games in the NFC portion of the bracket. Probably going to Tampa, you'd play Tom Brady at home. Then you'd go play Aaron Rodgers in January at Lambeau or something, and then maybe the Rams at SoFi in Los Angeles, right? You'd have to roll through 3 of the best teams in the league on the road just to get there, and then by the way, Andy Reid or Bill Belichick getting 2 weeks to prep for you in the actual Super Bowl. So no, I mean. I think the reason why we're so frustrated is because the Vikings keep putting themselves in this position. Well, maybe if we can sneak in, it's like teams that, well, the Giants did it one time, and then they'll pick out like what the Packers, when they won the Super Bowl, they did it as a wild card. Well, those are outliers, and Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Like, yeah, his game will travel on the road against the best teams in the NFL. The Vikings aren't in that position. So I don't know, Declan, are you in agreement with me here?
Yeah,
I mean, not that Judd disagrees, but.
I don't care if they go 8-9. If they win a GD Super Bowl, I won't remember the 8-9. I remember them winning a Super Bowl. That's totally fine with me. I want a damn Super Bowl. So if the regular season is an under 500 record, totally okay with it. Doesn't bug me.
And like, when have the Vikings shown at all under Zimmer and Cousins let's just go back the last 4 years. Zimmer, Cousins. When have they shown that they can rattle off 3 or 4 straight wins against winning teams?
Oh yeah. They would be so uptight. They would be a great feel good underdog story and still get uptight, which is hard to do. Those two between them, there'd be a pucker factor that would be out of this outlandishly bad. So yeah, no, to be clear, I have no thought that this could happen, but if it did to a team, I wouldn't denigrate their title unless they had a once Hall of Fame quarterback fluttering footballs through the air in a pathetic end to a career. You know what? Brett Favre in 2009 was fine because he still had the arm strength.
Yeah, he died on the turf trying to do it, but yes, he did.
No, that was 10, and he didn't want to come back.
Oh, he died in 2009 too at the end.
Yeah, his bottom half was broken.
His legs were just bruised beyond belief. It's football.
All right, Tyrell Adams in the YouTube comment section has a critique about the tone of our shows lately. He says, you guys need to celebrate the 95% of guys that will be on next year's Vikings team. Give Harrison Smith credit when he makes a game-winning play. Don't write it off as the Steelers dropped it. I don't think we did that.
Harrison Smith made a great
very
play.
Properly praised him. Yes.
Yeah.
Be happy to watch JJ and Cook kick ass.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like we probably done a lot of that this week.
Jefferson Stan, there's no question.
Yeah. And be happy to watch Kirk and Zimmer fail so they won't be back. Plenty to be happy about. I feel like we check all those boxes for the most part. I wouldn't say we're happy when Kirk and Zimmer fail, but I think we recognize there's limitations to the two most important leaders of the team, the coach and the quarterback, that probably prevent this team from winning a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. So, but there is, like, to his main point, there's a lot coming back next year, even if Zimmer and or Kirk don't come back. Some weapons, some interesting young offensive linemen, some defenders still in their prime. So, yeah.
I appreciate the note, but are we sure he's finding the right show? Like, we talk about all of those things in the JJ thing we celebrate continually. I feel like on Cook I'm trying to, like, what aren't we happy about when it comes to this team's future?
I think it's understandable. I mean, we sit here and we do 2, 3, 4 hours of hashtag content every day, and not everyone consumes all of it. I think if you're coming in for like a tweet or two or a snapshot of a show that's negative or something, I don't know.
Harrison Smith had a great game against the Steelers and made a great play.
I have seen people take issue with you, Judd, saying that Harrison Smith has lost a step and saying, well, look at the Pittsburgh game. How can you say he's lost a step? Look at that Pittsburgh game.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. In fact, I was going back and forth with somebody on Twitter who is a passionate Vikings fan. And he's like, well, Smith is still great. And I said, yeah, but relative to the contract, he's not. Because he's going to be paid a ton. And I said against Pittsburgh, Smith was outstanding. That was vintage. That was the still bottled 1969 Harrison Smith. It was fantastic. But the reality is he has fallen. Now it's not like he's dropped massively, but I mean, this guy was a couple of years back, probably a top 5 safety in the entire league. And now he's outside that, which the important thing that I keep saying is this: understand the decline has to lead to the departure at some point. And what you can't do is you can't be like, well, he should be with us for his entire career, so we'll just continue to accept the decline. You've got to be the most important thing that the Vikings need to do is be willing to cut bait with players that a lot of fans like fairly quickly here because your underlying core is really good. And what you don't want to do is continue to have cap money tied up on players who people have their jerseys just because.
See, I think the cap part of it is the more important part of it, because Harrison Smith, I think he's one of the 10 best safeties in the NFL still. I think PFF would probably back that up with their grades this season. I think Kirk Cousins is one of the 15 best quarterbacks in the world.
Sure.
And I think Dalvin Cook is one of the, when he's healthy, one of the 5 best running backs in the world. But the problem is, and Anthony Barr, they reduced his contract for a long time. They aren't paying him. It's where they're allocating their money. It's a salary cap league.
That's
and
why.
It's like, they were at one point, I think they were paying safeties, like, because they had what's his name on
Anthony Harris.
Anthony Harris was on
the
a
franchise
tag
because they thought they could trade him. Yeah,
that they had a non-top 8 quarterback making top 3 money to the cap, and they had 2 safeties making more money than any other teams. And they're paying a running back. It's like, if you're ranking the most important positions in the NFL, running back and safety aren't in the top 5. But Harrison Smith is a Hall of Famer, so it's hard to reconcile. I think where they're allocating their cap space in 2022 needs to be looked at, though, for sure. I don't think they need to boot Harrison Smith, but they might have to look at that contract again.
Well, and the important thing to keep in mind about this team is just remember, Rob Brzezinski, who's done a fantastic job now for about 21 years, was brought in because this team rewarded a ton of players with contracts because of what they had done. Can never do that.
Yeah.
This is not a sport with salary caps and attrition. You cannot give a contract to a player because our fans love that player and because he's been great. This ain't baseball, baby.
Carrie Onishi via the Score North app. My name is Carrie. Been listening to you guys for about 8 months now. So glad I found you guys. I live in Denver. Been here almost 20 years, but born and raised in Utah. Been a Vikings fan since 1972. I was 6 years old, and Wonder Bread used to put football cards in their bread. Judd, do you remember this? Was this back in your day?
Wonder Bread used to do some sports stuff. I don't remember that one, but they definitely did some sports stuff.
My first card was a Chuck Foreman card, and I've had purple in my blood ever since. But enough of that. Just wanted to say that watching both the Chargers and the Chiefs last night, move down the field, both needing a score in that crazy fourth quarter, was so fun to watch and yet really frustrating because the Vikings have the talent to do this more often. This has been one of my most frustrating years to be a Viking fan, but I know that I'll forever be a fan of the purple. I own a T-shirt with the Purple Daily mission statement on it. Win a Super Bowl before we die. Carrie, thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think I saw the Cousins Crusaders on Twitter last night. I saw one of them, a Vikings blogger, I can't remember who, but tweeted something like, "Imagine if Kirk Cousins had 12 or 13 interceptions like Herbert and Mahomes, where the Vikings would be."
Oh my God.
I mean, Mahomes is definitely having his worst year. Give me either one of those two guys. Those arms, like, holy cow. That was a fun duel last night. And those guys are going to be going back and forth. They're both like 23 and 26. Those guys are going to be going back and forth for a decade in that division.
You get one of those, man. You get one of those. You got yourself something special. But where I will move off the Cousins road, and I will say that what we saw again last night is why I want an offensive-minded head coach who understands how to do that. Because
like
you know what?
Carroll, like Pete Carroll.
No, not Pete Carroll. Not Pete Carroll. And no.
We're gonna need to put a disclaimer. I think lesson going forward, and we'll get to this on Purple Daily today. We need to put a disclaimer on anything that comes from Reckless Speculation Thursday. That, like, okay, this is Reckless Speculation Thursday.
Right.
This is all in fun.
But I mean, the Vikings have him on a list. So like you guys, like we didn't recklessly come up with Pete's name. So like this is the reality of Pete Carroll being the next Vikings coach exists. I think it's crazy. But part of the reason why I think it's crazy is I want a person who comes in and understands what I saw on Thursday night. The problem with Zimmer and Carroll, probably to a certain degree, is they watch that game and think, how would I stop it? How would I slow it down?
You can't. So you need to score 35.
And I want the guy who says, get me the ball back so I can have my offense score a touchdown. This is why I want to go. So I want somebody who fully understands that what they saw in that glorious football game is where it's going. So how do you, because Carrie's right. Carrie's right. The Vikings have some of the components 1,000% to conduct
And they've
drives
done
like
that a few times this year. They've got some fourth quarter comebacks.
Right, but I mean, wouldn't you like it? Wouldn't you like them to get the ball and say, I'm pretty damn sure they're going to score?
Well, another thing with both those guys, I mean, they're both more mobile, Herbert and Mahomes.
Sure.
No, neither one of them is Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray or maybe even Josh Allen. But those guys are able to keep that throw that Herbert made. We talked about it last week where he rolls out to his right. He's on the run, and he just throws a dime, double coverage, in stride, touchdown, like 60 yards down the field off one leg. It's like, yeah, that's absurd. Okay, Russell via YouTube says, I love when Alex Boone comes on and poops all over Score North's pass-first obsession because Booney loves to run the rock. I think I love what Boone has been saying about running the ball and leaning into that. I'll just speak for myself on this one. I don't think it's about not running the ball. We've seen what Buffalo has become this season where they've just stopped handing the ball off to running backs and they've become predictable and one-dimensional. It's less about taking away from runs for me and moving runs into passes. Situationally, I think they run the ball too much on second and long, and so I'll nitpick that. It was about the first half of the season, how they're throwing the ball. The Vikings had the third lowest average depth of target in the league through the first 2 months. They were too conservative with their passing. It wasn't that they weren't passing enough. It was that when they passed, it was too conservative.
Yeah.
And so that's where I was coming from. And lately they've corrected it in the last month and a half. The numbers are different.
Yes, the play calling was the problem. And yeah, you have to and you should run the ball. Play action, which they basically abandoned for the first half of the season. I don't know why. Play action, I still think, and it's old school, is great. It's smart.
Especially with this team.
So yeah, don't confuse, and this makes sense. Don't confuse when we talk about the pass with the fact that we think that you should never run. But do I think that they should be more creative and find ways to continue to use one of the best receivers in the entire league? Absolutely. So if you think that we think they shouldn't run at all, that's incorrect. But we do talk about the pass. It's just that a lot of their play calling at times, especially early, seem to be pretty archaic, and that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me, sipping on my vodka here.
You lucky guy.
Another Boone comment. So I want to preface this one by saying 95% of the feedback that we get from you guys via Twitter, YouTube, email, Score North app on Alex Boone is very positive. That it's been a blast having him on. So he used to be part of Purple Daily and Mackey and Judd a couple years ago when we were doing a lot more radio. And then he tried to make an NFL comeback. He got back to the Seahawks, at the end of last season, and then now he's getting back into media. So we'd like to get him in the mix more. So the feedback's been great. He's had a blast, and thank you guys for all your complimentary words. When we get criticisms of Boone, it usually sounds something like this. Billy Jones on YouTube. Alex Boone was a bust, way worse than Dakota Dozier. I have pulled up Pro Football Focus's grades just to see if that's true. And let me tell you.
It's not true.
Let me tell you, okay? It's amazing how our offensive line beer goggles have kicked in the last few years here. So Alex Boone's season with the Vikings, he had a 67 overall grade out of 100. So 67 out of 100. It's just right around league average, maybe slightly above league average as a guard for the Vikings that one, quote-unquote, bust season. Mm-hmm. Dakota Dozier with the Vikings, 51.5 in 2019, 44.6 in 2020. One of the worst offensive linemen in the league. People, for whatever reason, I think it's because Boone came in, he talked a lot,
right.
He trash talked. Signed a big contract,
yeah.
and the team melted down the stretch, and maybe he wasn't as good as he was with the Niners, which, by the way, his peak seasons with the Niners, especially 2011-12, he was one of the 8 to 10 best guards in the entire league and started a Super Bowl. And by the way, his pass protection grades would be the best on the team, even the season with the Vikings. He was a great pass protector. So not that we need to sit up here and like validate a 10-year NFL career in which the guy was very successful, played in the Super Bowl, etc.
Yeah.
He was not a bust with the Vikings, according to
Dakota
PFF.
Dozier.
He started 3 straight NFC championship games on one of the best teams in the league, obviously, in the San Francisco 49ers. That's not a bust, man.
Yeah, anyone that's like questioning his credibility because he like the Viking season that he was part of wasn't great. It's like, come on, guys. He was one of the best guards in the NFL for a number of years. Self-made man. And we're biased because he's our friend and he's awesome. Okay, Garrett Wright via the Score North app. I just thought I'd share this with you guys since you are talking about Doug Pederson. I went to an Eagles fan page on the internet and asked them the possibility of Pederson coaching the Vikings, and the general consensus was that they didn't want to see him in Minnesota because they didn't want to cheer against him. He can lead a veteran team deep into the playoffs. He's a great coach. Something tells me the dysfunction that led to his firing was GM related in Philadelphia. Seems like the fans and players loved him. It's official. I want Doug Pederson to be our coach. So Garrett Wright doing some sleuthing on Philadelphia Eagles blogs and whatnot. What do you guys? Where are you guys at with this? I'm gonna say like Doug Pederson's on my short list. If I have a list of 3 replacements for Zimmer, Doug Pederson's on my short list.
If it's Doug Pederson or Pete Carroll, I am going with door number 1 every single time.
Me too.
It's not even close. It's not even close. And to be clear, I am the one guy on this show who has no interest in Pete Carroll. I think it would be a terrible move. It's too similar. I don't care. I mean, Doug would fit the bill of, I think he treats people better than Mike has. He understands offense. He right or wrong, at least gets the QB position because, well, he played it. So yeah, is he atop my list? Probably not. But yeah, if the Wilfs are like, we are going to bring in a veteran coach, damn it, Judd, we need to have a veteran coach because we can win. I am taking Doug Pederson over Pete Carroll every single time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Doug Pederson's definitely on my short list as well. I don't know if like it's solidified as of this moment that like, oh, he's my number 1 guy. Mine is Kellen Moore. If we're just making short lists and making up reckless speculation ideas for the Vikings' next head coach, but he's worth an interview. He won a damn Super Bowl 4 years ago. And I heard a comment the other day. I was talking to a buddy yesterday at dinner. He was like, well, winning a Super Bowl 4 years ago, that's like 10 years in the NFL. First off, I strongly disagree. I don't think 4 years of being removed from winning a Super Bowl is 10 years old in the NFL. And it's not just like, oh, did he win a fluky Super Bowl against a bad team? That dude out-coached Bill Belichick with Nick bleeping Foles, dude.
I know.
He won a Super
crazy.
Bowl against the best coach-quarterback tandem of all time. So, yes, I'm in on Doug Pederson at least getting an interview with this team.
That's also a franchise. Let's keep in mind here. It's such a volatile market with fans and ownership has elephant ears when it comes to listening, or rabbit ears, I guess it would be, when it comes to like listening to what fans say. They were so fast to move on from Andy Reid, right? The minute Andy Reid had like a bad season and, now Andy Reid also had like 14 years of not winning a Super Bowl, so they were ready.
And coach for a long time, yeah.
So I get that, but let's not put it all on Doug Pederson the way that thing ended. What about Urban Meyer? Is he on your short list? Did you guys bring Urban Meyer in here? Work with Kirk?
You know what? If I ran a college program, I'd take a long, hard look. Pro program, no. Like that was the most obvious. That one you could see it a mile away. Now it was worse than I thought, but my God, how did you look at a guy
who is his kicker?
Yeah, but I mean that's college. That's those guys. That's those college coaches. God. Like I knew Nick Saban stay in college. I said that before too, because you're so used to having complete control and you can intimidate kids. But you know what? The flip side, if that works in college, I take a chance on you.
If physical violence with your special teams
you know what?
Unit works in college.
This is the biggest thing about sports and football in particular is this notion that we care about people. It's so funny. Like, just come out and say we don't care about people. I mean, the league is going to play that Browns game. Sounds like it's going to be played. They're on their 3rd QB. because the league's like, we're not
Well,
delaying games.
I love how this was Case Keenum's golden opportunity,
I know,
right?
man.
To take the reins.
Yeah.
If he would have played lights out, they probably would have just kept him in as the starter, and then he gets COVID a day later.
Yeah, but I'm just saying this sport is, among all sports, this is the one where they don't give a damn about people at all. Just admit to it.
Minnie Meister on YouTube says, Declan just sits there listening to these two crazy people, Mackey and Judd, ramble on and on about all kinds of crazy things. It makes me laugh so much. Amazing content. Keep it up. Do you ever feel like you're just sitting there listening to two crazy people ramble?
I am listening to two crazy people ramble, but I'm doing it from the side of content creation and making sure that these two dudes are staying on track. I've told you, I think, before, and I've told other podcasts when people ask, like, what does a producer do? I am the brakes on this car. And I don't mean that pun intended because the producer hits brakes, which, by the way, not all producers hit brakes if you want Radio 101. But you guys are driving the car. I am not steering the car. I am here to be relied on to make sure the show does not die. That's what the brakes do on a car.
What people don't realize about Declan is, we're sitting here in this digital media world, right, where there's 6 different platforms that you're producing content on or whatever it is. And so everything we do, we do 2, 3, 4 hours a day of podcasts and stuff. And then it's on Declan to make sure that stuff also lives on every other platform. And it's a very pressure-packed and confusing job in some ways. But that's what it is.
That's what I do here. What would suppose you do here, Declan? That's what I do here.
What would you say? Rob D via YouTube says, Judd reminds me of Larry David and George Costanza.
I can see that.
I can see a little bit, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I just watched the first 3 episodes of
I'm
the
through
new
all
Curb
8.
season.
I'm
Oh
through
my
all
God.
You
8
plopper.
now.
Oh my God.
And let me tell you,
you're a plopper,
You
Larry.
plop.
You plop.
the Tracy
I did
Ullman
plop.
guest appearance, the arc with her is fantastic.
Okay.
Tracy Ullman's one of the greats of all time.
God, it's such a
That show is so good.
Hey, did you ask maintenance to fix the toilet seat yet? No, okay. That's a great thread there too.
Oh, they just
my
it's
God.
unbelievable. The amount of real life things, just nuances that they come up with to like pick on. It blows my mind. It's so genius.
Dan Briggs via YouTube said, you guys make me feel like I'm there with you when you all have these side jokes and humor. Not sure how you guys do it so naturally on the spot. First of all, Dan, that's literally one of the best compliments you can give the show is when it feels like you guys are just like in the room with us and you're hanging out. We're all friends. I think the answer to how if it does sound natural, thank you. But we've been doing a show together, Judd and I, for almost 8 years now, and I think that's probably part of it.
It's a big part of it.
You just know like what makes the other person go off or laugh or whatever. So, and Declan was our like main backup producer on the radio for a couple years. And then he ventured off into other places and then came back a few years ago. So Declan's been around the show for like parts of 4 or 5 years too.
Yeah, I know you crazy cats. I know how you work. So that's kind of what I do.
And then Jesse Johnson via the Score North app says, big fan of the show. Just curious if or when there's time for you guys, could you do a little background on how all 3 of your careers came to be and where you came from and how Score North came to be? One rainy night back in 1969, Judd Zulgad was born in
This is
Los Angeles. Was born in Los Angeles.
Hollywood, California, baby.
Dex, you go first. Tell the audience what don't start at birth, but how'd you get here?
So I went to St. Paul Central High School, and they had a TV production class in there where we did the news every day during homeroom. I knew pretty early I wanted to do media, so I went to St. Cloud State, go Huskies, and they have a great media program there. But I learned on the first day at orientation for the TV class, basically, and program that I had wanted nothing to do with television. It was full of Madonnas. It was full of personalities that I didn't want to have to deal with.
And now here he is.
And now
on
here I am.
everyone's TV screen, smart TVs.
Yep, with great hair.
But then shortly got involved with the campus radio station, which led me into some sports play-by-play. I worked with the St. Paul Saints for internships between college years. I did photography at Target Field. I did some writing, too, for the school paper. I did a little bit of everything to figure out what I wanted to do. And I think what I realized pretty quickly, being at the radio station, was I just wanted to talk about sports. And eventually I did a lot of opportunities. And I think that's also what I recommend people doing, is trying a little bit of everything to see what you want to do. And then when I graduated, got a job here working as a board op, I also worked for Bring Me the News, writing stories with them. And that's kind of where I've been for the last basically 5 years. And now obviously as an executive producer, which is hilarious to me to have that title as executive in it. But I guess I've earned it. But that's
Declan's the vice president of Mackey and Judd production. Is what he is.
That's the next one.
He's the CMO of Purple Daily.
Write that down, Dan Seaman. Write that down for me. But yeah,
You should go pitch that to Dan. Say, So listen, I am the marketing engine for this show. Can I be the CMO of Purple Daily?
That'd be great.
He'd be like, fine, no raise.
Sure, we'll give you the title.
You get all titles cards. You want, man. You keep upgrading that title every year.
Here's a gift card.
Yeah. Go to Caribou and knock yourself out.
Judd's an old newspaper guy.
Yeah, so I worked at the Strib. I started in a support staff job in 1989. I think I was 19, August, I believe, of that year, and eventually graduated to covering sports full time in 2003. I did the Packers 2003 and 4 at the Strib, because for 2 years they actually did cover the Packers, and then from 05 to 2010 I did the Vikings, and then came here. So yeah, I mean, basically my path is not a unique one. I think there's been a lot of people throughout the country who have basically made that transition. But yeah, it's been fun, and talking about sports is great. And the most important thing is to get on a show where you like the people, and it works out well.
Judd's actually downplaying his resume. He was the lead Vikings beat writer for the Star Tribune's Access Vikings team.
Yeah, starting in 2008, because I think I was 2005 through 7 with Seifert.
You were Seifert's lackey,
and I was Seifert's lackey, and then 2000,
and then Chip was your lackey.
8, 9, and 10. Yeah, but no, it's been fun, and the thing I like about this job is it does give you the opportunity to broaden out and talk about all sports instead of just being focused on one team,
and review action movies and things, which we'll bring those back after the football season's over.
Count on my relationships. It's the whole thing. It's a lot of fun. A lot of options.
We cover a lot of canvas to be painted here. So I actually drove by the first radio station I ever worked at in like 2004 or 5 was KRWC 1360 out in Buffalo, Minnesota. When I was back in town last week, I drove by just to take a look at the old stomping grounds. I was at KFAN from 2005 through 2010. Weekend host, producer. I produced the Sludge and Lake show for a couple years during the week. And then I was a Vikings beat reporter where I got to know Judd a little bit. And then in 2010, AM 1500 radio decided we're going to flip to sports and compete. And we're looking to bring on some young talent. So they brought on me, Tom Pelissero. A year later, they brought on Judd. And so for 8 or 9 years, we were an AM sports radio station. Judd, it was Royce and Mackey for a few years, and then Judd and I started doing a 4-hour talk show together back in 2014. And as far as how Score came in, Score was really born out of 1500 ESPN and AM radio's decline. We knew that we had to go from AM radio just wasn't. It's not a viable business model to reach audiences under the age of 45 or 50. It just isn't. How many of you guys that watch us on YouTube listen to AM radio? And so that was our conundrum a few years ago: is how do we build something more sustainable that has its own brand, that's not borrowing from an AM radio piece of a brand and ESPN. And so that's where Score North was born in 2019, and hopefully it's more sustainable for the long run now that we're reaching people on AM radio still, and podcast and YouTube and social media and stuff. So we had a bigger staff about 2 years ago, but then COVID hit, and so it's the 3 of us full time at Score right now. Jason Stormer is our overnight producer who works with all the stations, and he helps us with some of the highlights that you see and hear on the show. We have some awesome part timers that help us on social media and with different production things on the radio side. AJ Fredrickson, Artis Woods, Brian Winger, Manny Hill, Evan Little. I'm going to miss people here. Rachel Francis. So we've got a good group here, and we're hoping to grow this thing going forward the next few years. So, or we'll all just go back to the Star Tribune and St. Cloud State newspaper or something.
Yeah, that is my backup plan. Everyone's favorite safety school for a good reason, because there's a lot of safety nets you can fall back into.
All right. I hope